I think an open convention would be great. Basically, have candidates who want the position or looking for the position kind of debate at the convention and maybe figure out what would be best. But I think logistically, and I honestly think this is what the White House is debating on right now. I think Biden's going to drop out. I think he's decided.
I think so too.
But I think the White House right now is deciding in his speech, is he going to endorse Harris or is he not going to endorse anybody? And there's going to be some sort of mini primary contest to decide who the next nominee is. But I personally think it's going to be Harris.
Can I give a hot take? This is just a personal opinion.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you this question. What is the number one critique of Biden right now? I guess there's two answers to this, but
I think I might have two.
From his opponent's side.
From his opponents?
Yeah. His naysayers, like the people that are like, I am not voting for him.
Well, if you like Republican opponents or
it's
potential voters that are saying the reason why they wouldn't vote for him.
It's tough to say because I think there are some people that are adamantly against how he's handling
I'll say this,
the genocide in Palestine.
I was going to say the Republicans' view is pretty much everything, but mostly economy, age, and immigration. I think people who are independent voters or left-leaning voters say his age and Gaza.
Yeah.
Are the two things.
Right. Okay. So I think I was just looking for like a more generalized, like in the press, which has a lot of power, lot of power. I would say, my opinion, I just wanted to see if you had the same one, is his age.
Yeah.
That's what's making the headlines right now.
That is. You're right. More than Gaza right now.
Right. Because that's the people who have issue, and this might be a generalization, but the people who have issue with that are more in his own party. I'm one of them. No. His
Gaza.
I'm
more
one
in his
of
own
them.
party. Agreed. Yeah.
But I do believe if Trump isn't going to be any better with that, then I think you have to be very careful with like it's chestnut checkers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And,
like
and the Republican view is stand strongly with Israel.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Which Democrats don't like that about Biden.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So is that really going to I mean, yeah, it's going to cost him some votes. And I'm not saying, again, I'm against how he's handling it, but is that going to cost him as many votes with it from within his own party?
That's the thing. I think people eventually come home.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But my hot take is because the most publicized issue with him right now is that he is old and declining. I actually believe anybody else running against Trump, especially a woman, in an election where women's rights are so prominent on the ballot, and you can say, well, Biden's president now. Why doesn't he just do something now? And that's not exactly how it works. But I think if Kamala runs against Trump, I think she clears him. I really, really do.
I don't think it's that straightforward.
It's absolutely not. I don't think it's like
her chances are better than Biden's.
I do too. Based on what I just said, of course I do. But I really, really think that that is a big issue on the ballot.
For sure.
It is a talked about issue. I really, really, really think.
And a Democratic strategist would need to say, keep bringing up abortion because it's Republicans' weakest issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think then that's the job of the campaigns moving forward in the next couple months is to highlight that.
And I know, and it's not black and white, whereas not all women are pro-choice, obviously.
Sure.
Right. But I think if they didn't have it before, which I feel like they do anyways, Kamala secures the female vote, the black vote.
Even those demographics haven't all been with her though. Right.
That's what I'm saying.
She hasn't been field tested in a general election.
I still think she gets those votes overall.
I think it's too up in the air. I don't think it's a guarantee. That's why I think it's still. I can't firmly say from my knowledge base that if Biden steps down and we have another nominee, whether it's Harris or somebody else, I just still can't say confidently that it's a neck and neck race. I think if Biden steps down and we have another nominee, it becomes way more competitive than it is right now.
Yeah, so we're at least we're on the same page there.
Yeah, yeah.
I also think and I want to preface this by like I see that this could be me in my bubble, right? Because a lot of the people that I hang out with share similar,
Sure.
Opinions on who they want to win. I don't know. I just think also given the fact that she would be the first female president.
How'd that work for Hillary?
Great.
I mean, there's been a female nominee.
People really did not like Hillary.
Right.
Like people really did not like Hillary.
And there are people admittedly, I need to read more up on Harris. I think, because I didn't really know much about her. I probably did more in the 2020 primaries when she was running, but her campaign didn't get any delegates.
A big critique of her is being a prosecutor and, yeah. That's a big one.
I need to learn more about her, but it would be interesting if Biden steps down and she becomes the nominee and how that whole process would.
I think she has. Again, I don't like calling it like the gay vote, the black vote, the female vote, because that's like a huge generalization.
There's different demographics.
Right. I think she has the gay vote for sure. Although twinks for Trump scare me like
hasn't her following been called the K-Hive? Isn't that a thing?
Is that a thing? I don't know. I've just seen the coconut.
The K-Hive. Yeah, would you follow the coconut tree? Yeah.
Have you seen people? We can make it a little bit lighter for a second. Have you seen people editing her laugh into songs that also have laughs, like pop songs? No. So, like in the beginning of "Blow" by Kesha laughs, and somebody edited it so it's like, "Do you think you just fell out of the coconut tree?" And then she laughs, and then it goes dance. It's really good.
I think she would get. I think younger voters are tired by our choices. I think honestly, this entire country is tired by our choices. I think in general, younger voters, I don't know, this might be my bias in my bubble as well, but I think younger voters might be interested by her as a new name for some, a new face for some, even though she's been around. And I think it could have some movement there. But it would be interesting.
I want to see a debate between her and JD Vance because she wiped the floor with Pence,
or even her and Trump. If she becomes the nominee, that would be cool.
Yes, I would love to see that too.
Let's move on. We've gone on this for a while. Another historical moment happened.
I know what you're gonna say.
A week ago. There was an assassination attempt on former President Trump's life. First question for you, and then let's just discuss it. Where were you? How did you find out? What were your kind of initial reactions? Take me through kind of like what you were thinking as you were finding out the news.
So I was, again, waiting tables. It's apparently all I do. I was standing at the service station at the bar, which is the end of the bar where you wait for your drinks to be made. And I saw it on TV. So I didn't get any texts. I didn't have my phone with me. I just looked up and saw Trump bleeding, which was incredibly jarring, as you can probably imagine. Looking up to see the former president being rushed off stage bleeding, and it says Trump shot. Like that was the headline. Like that was. I immediately forgot everything I was doing. Like every
all the orders.
And then every
what were
table
the specials?
after. Every table afterwards, I could not tell you what they looked like, what they ordered. Like I legitimately, it was a miracle. I think I was just on autopilot because I didn't make any mistakes, which was crazy.
It's a Twilight Zone moment.
It really, really was. So that was where I was. Was that the only question? I just went back to that moment.
Just initial reactions. Yeah, that was, I think, I was at BWI Airport flying home.
I thought of you immediately. I wanted to know what your reaction was.
The airport had lost electricity because of the heat. So there was not really much service. There was no Wi-Fi. None of the TVs were on and the lights were dim. And then my brother texted in the group chat, Trump was just shot. And I'm like, what? Lo and behold, he was. I got a notification that he was rushed off stage. I didn't realize that he was shot. And
like
I was glued to the TV or to my phone.
Right.
I wanted to know minute by minute updates. I wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to see the footage. I was shocked. No person running for public office or anything, anyone, just in general, should be in that situation. And political violence is not okay at any point towards any party, towards any individual.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop.
There's been a lot of critique of that statement, though, saying, well, their policies are political violence and their actions in office are political violence.
Whose policies?
The politicians, just in general. Like, oh, well, political violence is never the answer. How is Gaza doing? Like, why is that okay? And why is it okay for us to be cracking down on homelessness when, that's playing with people's lives? I just want to put that take out there because that is a critique of that statement.
Fair. I think when you talk about Gaza, that is political violence.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, in terms of a functioning democracy and in terms of from an election standpoint, elections should be decided at the ballot box, not at gunpoint.
Oh, I agree. I wanted to just say that I agree with your with that statement, what you shared. I just wanted to share that there is another take that's floating out there.
Yeah. And I think it was unacceptable that how quickly politicians on both sides politicized the event. Some people saying the Biden administration orchestrated the attack. Some people said that the Secret Service wanted Trump to be shot at.
Just so stupid.
And some people said now, like, oh, this was by plan so that the Republicans could win the election and just further boost their support and empathy. All of that is dumb when talking about it. Mm-hmm. And I think the further we get away from the actual event, it's only been a week, the more politicized it's going to be.
Right. And it's easier to politicize it because in the moment you watch and it's like this very like
someone almost died. And someone did die. Corey Comprentor, mm-hmm. which in terms of most hero ways to lose your life, he dove on top of his daughter and wife and lost his life. Like, I'm obviously not wishing that upon anybody, but he was a fire chief in Buffalo, New York, and it was awful. It was awful.
I do wonder how the hell it happened, like how, and I'm not saying, the secret, I am agreeing with you.
There was an error made.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like, how does the Secret Service and security at a rally for a former president let that slip by?
I am not saying this was an open field with only a few buildings.
Right. And listen, I'm not necessarily like critiquing because I don't know the first thing about being in the Secret Service. Like, I'm not saying, I'm just very curious how that happened. I'm not saying it was and it wasn't no one was, I don't think the Secret Service was not conspiring against Donald Trump.
Right.
Like that is
nor were any other security force that they're working with.
Right. I'm shocked that it happened.
It was a 20-year-old individual carrying an AR-15. They found explosives in his car.
Thank God those didn't go off. And that could have been.
Then they weren't sure. They weren't sure if again. This is an ongoing investigation, and Nick and I have no responsibility or no role in speculating here. So I want to just stick with the facts. But it was a 20-year-old with an AR-15 with a rangefinder, which is the scope.
Yeah.
And he was able to scale the building, get to the top of the building, take aim and fire.
And miss. And I'm not saying that in like just like the whole thing is so bizarre to me.
And he turned his head literally at the last millisecond.
That's
which
crazy.
Is why
God.
it didn't hit him. So all this is to say, Well,
It did
hit
hit him,
him,
not-
hit him through his brain, I guess is
Right.
what I'm saying. It hit him, as far as injuries go, minorly.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
That's
trying
it
to
is
be
wild.
trying to be sensitive because again, someone lost their life, in this event, but that was absurd, and that is not, my opinion, and I think it should be everyone's opinion. That is not how we handle politics or elections or disagreements in this country and in this world that I want to live in. And
I agree, and I think that I just cut you off, so I'm going to keep letting you.
no, that's
talk.
good. I think that's my point, and that's really even the reason that I bring it up. Really, like I'm
Yeah.
sure this has been talked about so much in the last week, but I just think it was a historical event, and let's not let it happen again.
Right. Well, it shouldn't have happened the first time.
Right.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, this is horrible, because my immediate fear was, is this how we're just gonna start handling elections? Is, oh, we don't like this guy and
Mm-hmm.
let's take him out. Are there gonna be attempts on Biden's life? I will say, we know that the kid was a registered Republican, which is interesting because he hadn't. There, people have said, or it has come out that he gave $15 to a Democratic leaning organization or Democratic supporting organization. But then I've seen, and I don't think this ended up being true, but I've seen something come out that it was like, oh, it was somebody by a different name, by the same name that gave that money. But I don't think that's true. I do think he gave that money. Am I correct in that?
I don't know, and so I don't want to speculate,
so
but
I
I do
won't-
know that he was a registered Republican. But I
Right.
also want to be careful about, again, bringing in these like potentially politicizing factors about.
No,
But that's true. This is true.
It
though.
is true, and that's why I want to put it
Yes.
in there.
Yeah,
I do,
that is
again,
true.
I don't know if it was somebody else that gave the $15. I don't think it was. I think that
I did hear that. I just don't know if I was able to confirm it.
right,
But I
and
did
I don't.
hear that.
And so I just want to, for the record, say like we'll keep that in, but like I don't know what part of that is fact in terms of the $15. It's just something I read and I didn't take it as fact. I'm not sure.
He
there.
also did look up photos of Biden and Trump beforehand.
Interesting.
So again,
It's
people
also
are trying to. If people are trying to use like those types of things as like, and I'm not saying that you are, but if people are trying to
I'm not.
use those things as like, oh, he was like a political enemy of whoever, it doesn't matter. He looked
No.
at both nominees, and
Right.
like was just
Okay.
out for violence.
Right. And the only reason I say that is in response to, I knew immediately that it was going to become a, oh, well, look
That was
at,
part right.
right. It was
part
to
of the
take down
politicizing.
Trump. Yeah. So I knew
Right.
that was going to happen. So I do think it was key defense when when that argument comes up that he was
Right.
registered Republican.
Right.
But it can also be made, people can also make the argument, well, he was, he registered at this time, but then he was straight. And also, it's very, very hard to, and almost not worth it, in my opinion, to try and figure out his motives, because this is a man or kid who made the decision to try and assassinate a former president. So clearly, the mental state there was not like if he thought he was getting away with that, and I don't know what his thoughts were. If he thought that if this was like he knew he was going to die, I don't know. And I don't think it's really like finding his logic there is kind of almost like a moot thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Initially, the information that's come out said there's no history of mental illness. There obviously someone is not thinking morally correct or morally well if they're going to think about shooting somebody,
Or just sanely, I think.
Sure.
Honestly.
Sure. I think I think the investigation's looking for motives just to make sure that there's nobody else involved. And again, I think the bigger point here is and and I said this is not how we should settle disputes. I agree with that. And I think it was a reality check from both sides, from all people who are politically involved. we have to lower the temperature, and words have meaning. And I think that I don't know, like whatever that means for you. I just think we have to be careful with what we say, and let's discuss policy, and let's discuss the character of the people that we're voting for and who are running for offices, public office. But there's ways of doing it that incites violence, and there's ways that discourages it or does not do that. And I think that we need to be mindful about our tone and the way that we discuss.
I agree to an extent. And obviously words have power, but I do think at the same time when somebody is enacting violence within their policy or with their policies, I think it's important to be honest about what they're doing too. And I think there's a distinction. There's a distinction.
But that's not then calling for someone to do violence on them.
Oh, of course not. Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Of course not. Yes, I agree. That's fully 100% full stop there.
Yeah.
Speaking of the potential to incite violence, though, what were your thoughts on? Because I have an opinion. I have a strong opinion on Trump's reaction.
Yeah.
And there's two sides to it really, because part of me does really see that if you're shot at, you are it's jarring. I mean, I've never been shot at, but I can imagine that his life literally flashed before his eyes and he was discombobulated and bleeding, and that's very, traumatic, scary, all of the above, right? Like I can see that and not being in like your right frame of mind after that happens.
Sure.
One of the most disturbing things that I've seen him do is get up when the Secret Service told him to like get down, like they were like hovering over him, and he said, I forget what the word was, but it was like wait or something. I don't know what it was, but he
said, let me get my shoes.
Oh jeez. But he said something else, but then he got
and
up
then he
and
said
was
fight,
pumping, right, and saying fight. Now, if he were saying that in terms of like, let's fight for the win, basically, like we're gonna fight this, we're gonna win, the election, our party. Sure, because people say that all the time. And that might have been what he was saying, and I'll also give him the benefit of the doubt that he was just shot at. He's not, like, in the right frame of mind. But, then this is a big but, yelling fight in a situation where there's a shooter in a large crowd and you're bleeding, like, that's jarring for anybody to look at, seems extremely irresponsible to me. Just given the fact that that could have been taken as get violent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on that. First, in terms of just a aesthetics look, I felt mixed. I was like, fist is tough because a fist can look bad, a fist can look strong. I saw it both ways. I thought, I don't know about that, but I did think I have other thoughts, but I think from a just aesthetics point, he did look kind of. He looked strong. Like he was just shot at and he put his fist in the air and he's like, okay, I'm okay. I think I was a little bit nervous, and I saw an interview and they were like, I was a former Secret Service agent saying like, at that point, you don't know if there's one shooter or multiple shooters or how many shooters there were. And so I think it had the risk to become very bad if there were other shooters, because the Secret Service were putting their bodies literally on the line to create a human shield. Mm-hmm. And if he was kind of poking up, he's a tall guy. If he was poking up top, that could have put him more at risk. Luckily there wasn't. Right. So that was okay. And I also get your point too about, if the security protocols that were in place allowed someone to kind of be like a couple hundred yards away to get a clear shot at him, failed, that would have been really bad, or that was really bad. But typically with the rally, they have to go through like, TSA type security and there's no weapons. But
right.
I do think it would have been bad.
Work.
It could have been bad. Right. And it could have been bad if then all of a sudden was like an all out frenzy.
Right.
To try and defend him or all of that stuff. That could have gotten bad.
And I will say a lot of people at his rallies are passionate.
Sure.
at any
I mean,
political rally, but
I mean,
especially his.
take January 6th.
That's what
That's
I'm
a
saying.
stop the steal rally ended in political violence, and we're
Right.
going to call it that. Right.
Right.
So I think it's good that it happened the way that it did, where there wasn't extra violence added on top of the violence that already
Right.
happened last weekend for the assassination attempt. I think fight is had the potential to incite more actions. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
an interview on ABC News last Saturday that a rally attendee said was that, when we realized what was happening, someone said, and I don't know if they actually felt this way, but this is what they said on the news. They said, we wanted to rush and protect him ourselves. That could have been bad as well.
Right.
So I don't really fault him for any reactions that immediately happened afterwards, because I think you don't know what the hell happened. He didn't know what the hell happened. I do think he probably should have been more low underneath the Secret Service people.
Secret Service tells you to do something, you do it.
Yeah, but I don't want to nitpick his actions.
And I hear you there, just because, again, that is a very like just the most chaotic situation. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I just think if the Secret Service tells you to, like, if he had said it, if he was on his own, I could see like being a little bit, but if like the Secret Service is supposed to be your protection, and you can, I'm sure there's room for critique there, just because they
are his protection, though. That's his role.
Right.
That's
but
their
then
role.
somebody, a naysayer could then say, well, look what happened. Like, they did a great job, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, agreed. Look what happened. But
right. So, and
they
that's
are
fair.
Their role is to protect him.
Right. And when the Secret, and I'm sure that he has been through training about what to do in that. I'm sure every president has.
That's probably why he dropped down.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
but getting up, I still stand by the fact that and like, if they're telling you to stay down, getting up and yelling fight, and that if there's a situation where someone's shooting and you're yelling fight, I'm sorry, but that's not. And I don't believe that. I believe that was to look strong, and I don't think it was for his country per se. I think I'm sorry, I still believe that it was for ego. He wanted to make sure he looked tough. He's there to win a contest that will give him more power. And the people that have said, oh, well, he took a bullet for this country. He didn't take a shit for this country. Like, he is in it for himself. That is my firm belief there. Sure.
I don't feel comfortable critiquing his actions immediately afterwards.
Fair. That is fair, because I've said it,
I don't know what I would do if I was shot and the part of my ear got ripped off by a bullet, and then how I'd react. I don't think I would react how he did. I think I would be shuddering in fear, if I'm being truthfully honest.
I would too.
Because I've never been in that situation before. But I don't know. I don't think this is what I got angry with people. Not angry, but I got frustrated with people who immediately politicized it after, like, things afterwards too. Like, I just don't know. I think that I wished, since I knew also too that the convention was going to start on Monday and this happened on Saturday, I was like, let's just take the weekend and let's not talk about politics. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, though.
Yeah, no, and I understand where you're coming from, because I am putting that sentiment in the word I'm saying, or in the words that in my argument of, I can't entirely fault him for what he did in the moments after I keep using the word jarring, and I don't know why. I mean, it works, but I don't want to just keep saying jarring, in a traumatic event. Like, you can't, like, who knows what? It's one of those situations where it's like, I can't say for sure what I would do. And I don't think anybody can. You can project all you want, but until you're in that moment, I don't think you would necessarily know.
Sure. I will, in pivoting away to kind of our final topic, I will say that on Monday, his campaign said that he spoke on the final day of the convention on Thursday. And on Monday, he said he had a speech. It was a I think in his words, he said, quote, it was a humdinger, end quote.
Oh, it was a humdinger, folks.
At Biden, like just in terms of the Biden administration and Democrats. But he tore it up and wrote a new speech. I do think he didn't speak at all until Thursday at the convention. He was just an attendee. He, in terms of behavioral observations, he did seem more somber. Even when he was giving his speech, he did seem, and I think this was strategy too. I think as part of the convention is they're trying to portray him as more, trying to humanize him as a grandfather. Empathetic. Exactly. Yeah. His granddaughter spoke very briefly at the convention too. And so like, I think that was strategically for sure. I'm skeptical. The campaign and other Republicans and analysts and whatnot are saying that it's changed him. I'm sure it's changed him in ways that I cannot imagine. I am skeptical of a complete personality change though.
No way.
And I think that's apparent. That was apparent in his speech.
Yes.
On Thursday. So yeah, I want to say that too, about two things can be true, that a traumatic event happened. There was an attempt on his life. And he survived. And I'm sure it changed him. I don't know how much it changed him though, in terms of personality and policy.
Oh yeah. No. I was talking to a friend, a different friend, last night, and they said the same thing, basically. Like, yeah, he appeared more human, and then just went into his typical
The first
stories.
30 minutes of his speech on Thursday were fantastic. Then it went into rambling that I couldn't follow.
It's similar vibe, honestly, for the most part, is people come home. Different scenario. You know how you mentioned, we talked about that with like voting, but I think even with situations like that, and of course people can change, but a lot of times people revert back to who they were.
Who you are. Yeah. Right. And we said he's 78, 79. He's lived a lot of life.
Like,
he's established who he is.
Right. Right.
JD Vance. Do you have any thoughts on him yet as the vice president candidate? I'm still learning more about him. He's an interesting figure.
He is.
To me. I will say in his speech on Wednesday, day 3 of the convention, very charismatic.
Is he?
I think his ability to talk is not quite Obama level, but it is getting there. I think his ability to talk is he's quite articulate. In terms of his policies and in terms of his career and who he is, I don't agree with most of his policies, and
Same.
that can be a different episode. And I think he's an interesting character in that he grew up in a poor family in Ohio that was struggling with opioid addiction. Not him, but his family members were. He was in the Marines. He then went to Ohio State, went to Yale Law School. That's where he met his wife. He then moved to California. He got involved with what's his name? I think it's Peter Thiel. Is like a big billionaire, like capital investor, or whatever. I don't know. I don't speak business. Or I don't do it well. And then he decided to move into politics. And so he's in his second year as a senator. And the Trump endorsement in 2022 was what helped put him in his spot. He was a never Trumper in 2016. He called Trump sorry, this is just an overview of who he is, and then you can hear his opinion. Sorry, I asked you about it. He called Trump at one point America's Hitler. He called Trump an opioid, which someone coming from a family who was battling with opioid addiction, coming from a community that was entrenched in the opioid addiction epidemic. I'd say that's pretty cutting words.
Mm-hmm.
And then switched to the point where now he really endorsed all of Trump's ideas, got Trump's endorsement, and now he's Trump's vice president nominee.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you to start that whole section off. What are your thoughts? But do you have any thoughts?
So I think it was a strategic move to pick him for Trump's side because he is very young, and he might be able to like bridge the gap between, which is I'm not happy about that, but he could bridge the gap between the younger skeptics of Trump that are still part of his party. I've also read that he's very conservative on a lot of things, specifically abortion, gay marriage, two things that I'm passionate about. But I also read that he's more I believe he's more pro-union and not necessarily union, but workers' rights. And he recently signed on to a bill proposed by Senator Warren.
I'm not sure about that.
We can fact check that before we put this out, obviously. So that's interesting. I also think that might potentially be a good thing for Trump, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately just because, like, from my point of view.
Because you don't want that ticket.
I don't want that ticket, exactly. Right. And that's why I'm saying unfortunately.
Strategically for Trump, it could be good.
It could be good.
But for who you're voting for, not good.
Right. But I've also had conversations with people who don't like him on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And it has even kind of swayed them from potentially voting for that ticket, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I was very surprised by that. As far as, saying all those things that he did about Trump and let me just be clear, like, charismatic or not, I'm not a JD Vance supporter. As far as all of those things that he said about Trump initially go, like, I feel like it's pretty, maybe not in those strong of words, but it's pretty common for a vice president to have said things about their president before they were picked, and then
Mike Pence did the same thing.
So did Kamala Harris.
Yeah, true. This is true.
So I don't think it's almost. It is. And part of me sees it as like a rolling over for a spot in power. Part of me just sees it as strategic, and you're also like if you're in politics for the right reasons, you still want to be on the hold office, and right. You make some sacrifice. It's a similar thing. Like if somebody says, "Oh, I hate my party's candidate," but you still see them as the lesser of two evils, you still endorse them with your vote.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Whether publicly or not. So I don't see that as that surprising or as damning as I would like it to be.
Yeah. I don't have a fully formed opinion yet. I don't like his policies. I know that, but I need to read up more on his record in the Senate.
In my opinion, a charismatic, not even leader. Well, yes, leader, but just candidate with dangerous policies is one of the scariest types of candidates.
Yeah.
I think similarly about Trump. I think Trump he's very brash, but he can be very charismatic. He's also very off-putting.
That's funny. I wouldn't say
he knows how to speak to his audience.
His base.
Right.
Yeah.
Do I find him? No, like, I find him very... I don't want to undermine my arguments by calling him names, but I don't like him. I'll say that. I very, very much don't like Donald Trump, but he has a way of connecting with the people that he wants to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I think I don't like Vance. I think he is very charismatic, as I said. I think he was picked because, as you kind of said, like the rollover for power type of thing. He's been quoted saying that if he were in Mike Pence's position on January 6th, he would have sent the votes back to the states, basically not certifying the 2020 election, which is dangerous. The only thing stopping the full-on chaos on that day was Pence certifying the election.
That's reason enough to not vote for them, in my opinion.
So I think it's dangerous. And I also think that it was strategic in that he's a young guy. He could be the face of the Republican Party for years to come. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, come full circle, I think is a good place to end. This election is going to be decided in what's called the Blue Wall states in the Rust Belt. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And I think since he's from Ohio, he's not from one of those states, but he's from the Midwest area. I think that potentially helps his ticket in those 3 states.
And just a quick caveat there. Let's remember why he had to pick a second VP too.
Because he didn't get the endorsement of his initial VP.
Of his initial one, and his extremist followers tried to hang him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what a fun note to end on. I'm glad we were able to talk about politics, though.
Right. I did enjoy this conversation.
I agree.
I found it meaningful.
And maybe this is a good point to end on too, is that if you notice, Nick and I did not necessarily agree on everything we discussed, but we were able to have a conversation. And that's the point of this show, and the point of that I think is a good one to hammer in, is that if you disagree with somebody, you don't have to agree with 100% with everybody, but you can still have a civilized conversation, debate about important things, and still be friends afterwards.
Right. And after this recording, what you're not going to hear is that we're actually going to tear each other individual new ones.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right. Take us home.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. My name is Justin Dew.
And I am Nick Gervasi.
And you can reach us at our email, pointofviewpodcast@gmail.com, and on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and TikTok @pointofviewpodcast, and Twitter @pointofview. If you enjoy our show, make sure to follow the podcast and give us a rating or review wherever you get your podcast, or share us with a friend or family member. We really appreciate it and are truly grateful for your support. As always, we hope you have a great 2 weeks. Thank you for listening. And until next time.
H. D. Get it? I'm funny. Just kidding, H.